I'd like to welcome Mr. Joao Jorge, the CEO of LAM Mozambique Airlines. Joao, you're most welcome, a dear friend of African Aviation. Thank you for joining us for the virtual event, the 29th Annual Air Finance Africa Conference. We really appreciate your time and presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nick. It's a pleasure to be joining. Of course, we'd love to be together, but at least this is a way you're trying to facilitate the communication to be kept between us, which you really need. We miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Perhaps I'll start out by asking, how are you coping in a pandemic in terms of your operations for the last, 6-7 months?
Yeah, traffic in Mozambique has never stopped. It slowed down dramatically. Domestically, we kept the operation running, which was good in a way to keep the blood flowing, let's put it this way, in the organization. But of course, we suffered a lot with the international traffic coming in. As soon as South Africa closed, which is our main tourism and business revenue, we saw a drop in about 70% of our revenues. And then that progressed to about 80% in May, coinciding with the closure or the lockdown of South African borders. And of course, the international organizations stopped, governments stopped, businesses stopped, and even the oil and gas, which was feeding a growth of about 23% in our traffic from 18 to 19, that one was gone immediately. So what we did, of course, we had to go to the shareholders and made sure we kept the operation flyable, let's put it this way. And whenever we needed, being it charters or some regular flights, we would keep that, because the country in Mozambique, the country is very long. The road and rail network is not so good, so we really need to keep things moving, including patients and samples of for the testing and chemicals required. So we really had to keep that moving, and the government supported us in that regard.
And what aircraft have you been operating and on what routes?
Well, we have basically kept the two Embraer 145s to our subsidiary MAX. We had our two 737s, the 700s that we lease for quite a while, and then we had one Q400 that we are basically operating dedicated to one of the oil projects.
Okay, and did you return the Embraer 195 or 170 you had?
Yeah, we had two Embraer 190s, and we had grounded them. We had grounded them prior to COVID, to the pandemic, okay. And they are still in Nairobi looking for a buyer. But of course, now the market is not so easy. So that's what we're trying to negotiate.
Yes, and I remember reading that you were about to launch a Lisbon flight. Obviously, I presume that's on hold at the moment.
Well, we did launch a Lisbon flight with a partner, and it was going very well. October was actually a good month.
Okay.
So it was picking up from the summer drop, but then now in November we are seeing the traffic drop because of the second event that's happening with the pandemic in Europe. So we are reducing the flights. We are flying twice a month, excuse me. But we will have to see and monitor how we're doing with that flight. The flight was doing very well for us at the beginning.
Okay, and what would you say about your traffic loads at the moment and revenue inflows?
Yeah, we are operating about, I would say, capacity-wise and frequency to the destinations. We are operating about 75% from pre-COVID already. And our loads are very good because you see there is a lot of demand. Some of the projects had been left unattended for a long time, and it's starting. So we are seeing loads of about 78, 82%, which in our case, the typical loads was 64, 66%.
75 sounds very good, actually.
Yes.
In a downturn. Yeah.
Definitely. In the downturn, this is good for us. And of course, because it's mostly corporate, we can get better yields with those loads. So that makes the load even more effective.
And the yields are higher.
Yes, the yields are higher compared to last year because it's mainly corporate that's flying. There's no tourism or very little tourism, I should say, and VFRs.
Congratulations on that. The last time we met, I remember we were talking about FastJet in Mozambique, the Ethiopian domestic airline. Now we read about Airlink coming into Maputo, I believe. Can you comment on what competition you have in the local market, if any, at the moment?
Yeah, the local market, of course, we have Ethiopian, but Ethiopian, with the pandemic, became a very skeleton operation. A single aircraft, maybe two, three flights a week. I believe it's to maintain the operation. So that is not so significant for us. I mean, FastJet, as you know, they have taken off. They're not here anymore since almost a year ago. Airlink, they have started now, and we know Airlink is ambitious and very powerful. They have quite good equipment and very versatile in terms of capacity and range. So they have started flights to Maputo, 2 flights coincidentally the same dates as we fly. So we are hoping to share the growth of the market with them, so we don't have to drop frequencies. We fly with the 737, they fly with the 135 for the moment. But yes, it's a serious, in a way, competition. But we will also try and partner in respect of spreading the schedule, and at the same time putting our passengers in their network, which is quite good in South Africa, and their passengers in our domestic network, quite good in Mozambique.
Absolutely. Are you talking to them at the moment, or have they approached you?
Yes, we've just started in terms of an IET, and we know in terms of interline tickets. So we will want to go as far as a code share if we can, because we would like to put our passengers all the way through Cape Town, Durban, PE in South Africa, as well as they would like to put their passengers all the way to our domestic routes.
Yeah, excellent. And can I turn to the government? Has the government of Mozambique given you a bailout as an airline? What type of support are they providing?
Okay, well, because we really only needed some support in those months of May when we dropped dramatically, and we had a lot of fixed costs that we had to support without revenue. I mean, not the government as government, but the shareholders have come up with some financing. Because of course they are involved in a lot more ventures and companies with some revenue, banks and things like that. They were able to finance that gap, but we haven't needed any support since June, because that's when we resumed with the charter flights, quite a lot of charters for these mega projects, being it oil and gas, coal, mining. And other government also services, as well as the loads and the yields that grew. So we were able to survive without any bailout.
Yes, and the aircraft you're operating at the moment, are they owned or are they leased?
Oh, they're all leased. We don't own any aircraft. The only 2 aircraft we own are the Embraers we are selling now.
Okay, and how have the lessors been? Have you looked for deferrals or rentals?
Well, in general, the lessors would agree to defer the rent, but our problem was we would be pushing a problem to the right, and we decided to make all efforts like we did to pay for the rent as it's due. One aircraft, because we had a contract, that guaranteed the usage of the aircraft, we were able to service that debt. So we decided not to use the deferral. That was actually made available to us. But we decided not to use it at the time.
So that's quite encouraging.
Indeed.
Yes. And can we turn to manpower? Have you had to lay off a lot of staff? What's the position at the moment?
No, we haven't laid off anyone. What we've been doing in the past 2 years is we have been retiring people and not rehiring them, or letting people that were rehired after retirement with the transition program. And we've also had some disciplinary cases that we didn't replace people. We kept the local staff. So we reduced, I would say, about 12% in the past 2 years, but nothing COVID specific or pandemic specific.
Yeah. And are you doing your maintenance in-house for the aircraft you're operating right now?
Well, we do light maintenance, daily checks, the A checks, but the C checks we do out. Actually, currently we have a C check, quite a deep one at Ethiopian Airlines MRO.
Okay, all right. And when we look at your network going forward after the COVID, what plans do you have for bouncing back?
Okay, we definitely want to resume whatever we were doing, which is basically Dar es Salaam. We already started Dar es Salaam. Dar es Salaam opened very early in this pandemic. Now Nairobi is open, so we're also doing Nairobi. We're doing Johannesburg, and we want to retake possibly the Harare and Lusaka flights. And then we want to look also at some prime destinations like Cape Town. Possibly we're talking to Angola, but Angola is quite locked yet. So we would like to consider resuming that flight in connection or in coordination with TAG in a partnership or a code share agreement, because these are markets that are there and give us good connections. So we'd like to do that. And of course, we have to see South African Airways is definitely leaving for now a big gap. We don't know what's going to happen. We hear many things. And the time is going by. But if we have some opportunity, we'll also try to get in there.
Yeah, talking about South African Airways, I mean, what is your view on the current status and future prospects?
Well, it's been very difficult because it seems that the market is there, the know-how is there, they have the people. What happens with South African is really the money, the debt that's there, and whenever decisions are made or indications of decisions come out, it seems like the money is not coming behind and supporting those decisions. So, I would say, in my personal view, with what I read and what we discuss between us, is that not before 6 or 8 months, and it can be a solution through a partnership, one of the big airlines in Africa or in Europe, I don't know, depending on the decision they'll take. But probably that will be the way, although there is a lot internal capacity to take over a lot of the domestic route network. And who knows, maybe some investors will come and develop the international route network that SAA has left blank. But definitely there will be airlines filling that gap, increasing capacity, increasing frequencies, because Johannesburg is a huge market and Cape Town, huge markets.
I mean, what is your preference? Is your preference for SA to be restructured or to be shut down?
Nick, if I talk to you emotionally, and South African Airways was the first tire I replaced in an aircraft. That's where I learned nuts and bolts. I learned operations, engineering. So it is a huge operation that's there, huge facilities network, very well trained people, good people. So I would like to see South African Airways going, but it's really this financial backing that does not seem for a long time now, with all the attempts they did with business rescue plan and all attempts to make a smaller airline. I wouldn't say, preferably I would see South African Airways coming back, but I don't see that happening soon, maybe in the next 8, 12 months, because of the complexity of the problem.
Let's stay on Africa. When you look around Africa with the current COVID situation, what is the future, do you think, for the African airline industry?
Well, I can see that, in these forecasts of recovery of 2023, 2024, like we've read a lot of documents and papers about that to get to pre-COVID figures. I don't think that will affect Africa in the same way in total. There is a lot of movement, and we can see in Mozambique, for example, already that is restarting, because people need to move independent of the situation of COVID domestically and regionally. We see a lot more domestic traffic, for example, domestic tourism, domestic investors that are moving around. So that's where we realized, the traffic was growing for us. For example, Tanzania became a really good hub, Dar es Salaam, and we're moving a lot of people through Dar es Salaam. So I can see Africa at least recovering at a better pace, and probably before the 2023-2024 forecasts. Africa has a lot to offer for within Africans, so that might boost that a little bit. we will see maybe SATAM will be better applied, and we'll get better fares. So that will generate even more traffic that before didn't afford to do. So I can see some good light at the end of the tunnel for Africa in a shorter period of time of recovery.
And if we take SATAM, are we actually achieving positive results in terms of implementation, in your view?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
SATAM, the open skies policy in Africa,
Yeah.
are we actually achieving anything, positive results, in your view, pre-COVID?
So far pre-COVID, there was very little done in implementation. There was some flights that were operating under the SATAM agreement. Some went back, like in South Africa, that happened with one of the routes. But there was no like objective or massive move towards using the benefits of SATAM. I think now that the government's opened that door, we as operators need to sit down and see, okay, let's see how we share the benefits, let's make a program and use SATAM to benefit the industry, the market, and not just one airline that wants to, because they have more clout or more capacity, that they will benefit from that. So once that's done, and once we sit together as operators now, I think we'll see some benefits, and that will reflect to the market.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, we always talk in Africa about increased connectivity and more cooperation among airlines. And just recently, it's been announced that Egypt Air will partner with the government of Ghana in creating a local airline, national airline for Ghana. Can you comment on that type of arrangement?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I was pretty close to the similar operation in Togo, and it was really a good example. It responded to a specific demand of the time very well, and the airline has got its own issues, but also has got some success stories to say. So I can see. I mean, Ghana has done several attempts to start airlines, and they really didn't go well. So what I would think is, probably. The people in Ghana, we had some meetings already with people involved in the Ghana project, because it's more than just an airline, it's training centers, it's MRO, etc. So it sounds like there's better preparation or willingness now to do something more as real cooperation, that will be more of a success, rather than what happened before. And we all know that, they started quite well, but then they didn't go into a success story, because my interpretation is that it wasn't very clear what benefits were to be shared and to be staying in country or staying with the airline, bringing in the equipment and the know-how.
Yeah, I mean, given your long experience in Africa in the airline industry, what advice or recommendations would you give to make such a joint venture, for example, Egypt and Ghana, to succeed? What would they need to do, in your view?
Well, I think that they would really need to open the books of both sides and say what they want to do, where they want to get, a nice roadmap, and adhere to it, because from what I've seen, and we have been together in many countries in around Africa, and it's the hidden agendas that usually jeopardize the benefits of these projects, because there is no doubt that an airline like Egypt Air, with all the knowledge, equipment, experience, that they can set up a successful operation, but it needs to be clear and accepted by the Ghana side what they are going to get for them, what they're going to give to Ghana, and Ghana as well, what they're going to give to Egypt Air and what they're going to receive from them. If that's clear and that's maintained and very open and transparent, I'm absolutely sure it's going to be a success story. All they need and they have is the market. Ghana is a beautiful market with possible connections to across the Atlantic or to Europe.
Yeah, thank you. We wish them luck anyway. When we move to the east of Africa, we look at Rwandair, doing quite well in terms of operations. And now they've partnered with Qatar, a non-African airline. So we've seen in West Africa, two African airlines, Egypt Air and Ghana, teaming up. And now in East Africa, Qatar Airways has come in to work with, partner with Rwandair. What is your view on that type of arrangement? And they want to develop a hub in Kigali, right next to Nairobi with Kenya Airways, and of course, Addis Ababa with ET. What are your views on that type of arrangement going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I've been following it since the creation of Rwandair, which was a very successful story. Basically, they had nothing, but the government had a lot of put a lot of commitment on that project. It was growing well, and then pre-COVID, Qatar started approaching. Qatar had already tried with some other operators in Africa, I believe, but it for some reason didn't work. So again, there, I hope if the only objective of Qatar is creating a hub to fill their aircraft, to fill their network, and not giving anything to Rwanda, might not work as successful as if they really see developing an airline there that will become, like a distributor and a feeder to them, but at the same time having, significant amount of traffic generated in that hub that the government is creating for them.
Yes, well, we certainly wish them as luck as well in terms of their joint venture going forward. If we turn to South Africa, after South African Airways suspended operations, we've seen Emirates and Qatar, I believe, dumping into the market very quickly to take market share. So the fact is, when SA comes back, if it does, the market would have been eroded. What are the consequences of that sort of development, do you think?
It will be very difficult for SAA in any way to restart the operations because of that. I mean, first of all, market confidence. There was always this hope given to customers, keep your tickets, we'll serve you. And then, of course, it's a big network because it's South African Airways, Mango, all these subsidiaries around South African Express that went down. So it will be difficult for them. And with these newcomers, Qatar are signing agreements with Airlink, for example, just announced a couple of days ago. So the market has this alternative.
And Emirates too, Emirates as well, with Airlink.
With Airlink, yeah. So this means that it's going to be extremely difficult for SAA to pick up that market that lost confidence unless they come up with a huge financing backing and good equipment and a network that will not make money for the first few years, will simply regain the name and the brand.
Yes. Let's turn to insurance. How expensive or difficult has it been for you to insure your fleet and operations, especially during the crisis?
Well, I mean, we were lucky enough that we had renewed just before the crisis. But we have experienced an increase in costs because there is definitely overall worldwide a less appetite to insure aircraft. With the history of the past few years, there was a lot of companies that left the market, so it became a bit difficult. That increased a little bit our premiums. Now we are going to see in a couple of months, we're renewing our insurance policy again. We've started basically last week, and we are concerned that combined with this lack of appetite and the fact of the pandemic being there, there's a lot less business for the insurance. So we'll need to see what's going to happen. And we foresee maybe a slight increase again in the premiums.
Okay. And turning to training, how have you managed to keep your staff, properly trained, the pilots, cabin crew, engineers, etc., during the downturn?
Yeah, in terms of the training we could do locally and remotely, meaning via Zoom, etc. We took the opportunity, the advantage. So we fed a lot of information and we provided a lot of training beyond what we used to do to people. But what we've done with the simulators, for example, is about 2 months ago, we've decided, regardless, we will not extend administratively. So we sent all our crews, some are still in simulators. So we sent them, we negotiated with, first of all, countries to get visas, with the local providers, with the health authorities there and here. So our pilots could go and safely do the recurrent training in simulator. And we have basically 80% of our crews that have re-certified. So they're all current now, those 80%. And they will all be in about a month or two without this long gap of no simulator training.
Yeah, that's good to hear. What lessons do you think we can learn from the downturn, the pandemic?
Well, definitely the pandemic has forced us to look at our cost side. I mean, and we found so many opportunities where we should have probably earlier done that, because there was a lot when we started desperately looking for cutting costs. We have also seen who is willing to partner or to put a shoulder against our heads. You know, when we are in crisis, a lot of companies were very supportive, some were not. And you know, that shows a lot, and that says a lot about us going to the future. We have also learned that we need to diversify. I mean, this you've probably heard of cargo, you know, carrying cargo in the cabin, for example. But we went beyond that. We went further to look where is there cargo that we can put even in the belly of our aircraft that were quite empty in some routes at the beginning. And so we also looked for additional sources of revenue, and that gave us a lot of knowledge on how to continue now for the future. And then, of course, the need to partner and not to aim at fighting, because if we're starting to fight for a route and fight for a fixed market, it's not going to happen in the future. So we should have probably done before, but now we understand better the need for this partnering and using all these opportunities of SATAM being one of them, but others in cargo as well, probably to make a low cost operation and at the same time increase the revenues.
Yeah. And in terms of airline leadership, how do you motivate your staff during a downturn, them really working so hard and committed?
Yeah, that is actually the most difficult part. You know, we have started with trying to address the case of the virus, and we have started to provide some moral support to people, because that was a huge problem at the beginning. We have then started to communicate a lot more. That's another thing we learned. You know, communicate about, you know, what are we doing, what's happening to our revenue, what's happening to the ventures we're trying to take in order to you know, get some more revenues, get into some partnerships we're having, into optimizing some use of assets, etc. So that's you know, what we've done with the people, and communicating both on the pandemic side and the operations and financial side of the house.
Yeah. Can you give us some final thoughts on the way forward for LAM, of course, and for African Airlines generally, how we can move forward individually and collectively in a positive manner in closing?
Okay, so in closing, what I'd say is we are lucky that these airlines that we're talking about stayed standing. They are able to operate. Their blood is flowing, so it's a matter of just boosting and, you know, multiplying the operation. It's a very good cloud tool. We need to talk to each other, like we are doing now with you know, these airlines we mentioned in South Africa, in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Angola. So we want, between airlines, we really need to start talking more. We've been talking about talking, but now we really need to talk about it. So that's very important. And then we need to look for these opportunities in the market that are there. I mean, there are so many mega projects like oil and gas, mining, agriculture, and tourism. I think we need to start learning that it's not just flying the aircraft. We need to create the need to go to places that are so, there are so many beautiful places, you know, in Africa, that we need to show people that they exist, and we will be there to take them when they need. If need be, you know, we need to collectively start investing on some tourism facilities, on spreading, you know, marketing, etc., about tourism, and creating the confidence that those are good places for people to go.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, Joao, I really want to thank you personally. You've been such a wonderful friend for us at African Aviation and for the African airline industry, whether OEMs, lessors, operators. You've been a wonderful friend for everybody. I want to congratulate you on your amazing leadership during this pandemic. I want to congratulate you and your management and staff and the government of Mozambique for supporting the airline in a very tough time. And we look forward, hopefully, to meeting in Johannesburg next May for the 30th Annual African Aviation Conference. Thank you so much, Joao.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Nick. It's been a pleasure for the last 35 years together.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.